Hello everyone and welcome to the first lesson on Pydantic. Let's go. What is Pydantic? Pydantic is a library that allows us to describe and validate data using types. And the coolest thing it allows us to do is to validate input data automatically. Believe me, for an automation engineer, this is gold. Let's install this library and get to work. We install it in the following way. We type pip install Pydantic. The library is installing. I already have it installed. Great. And we can get started. And the most important thing we'll need is a class called BaseModel. It's actually located in Pydantic and allows us to automatically validate data when creating an object, gives us serialization methods, and automatic type conversion. Let's import it and get to work. We type from Pydantic import BaseModel. What's the main thing here? That all other models are inherited from BaseModel. We're actually going to talk about that right now. There's nothing complicated here, but just remember it. We could talk forever about the Pydantic base and so on. I'll show the automation context right away. Look, we've received this kind of response from the server. It's a UUID, email, name, age, and is student. So essentially, we got back a user object, right? And our task is to validate what data type was returned, whether a certain field was returned, get access to it, compare it, and so on. In the old days, we would have done it like this. We would access the response, the key, for example, email, and check that it's equal to a specific value. Or, for example, we would use the isInstance method, which would check that the response, the email key, corresponds to the data type, like string, for example, right? But that's too much of a hassle. Yes, JSON schemas also exist, but believe me, after learning Pydantic, you'll drop them too, because Pydantic is real magic. What do? Based on the response from the server, this one, we'll write a sort of data class, a special Pydantic model. What will it look like? We create a class and call it, well, for example, user model. Yes, user model. Since this is the user model being returned from the server, we inherit it, as I already said, from BaseModel. And what do we describe here? For now, in a simple version, first lesson, the basics, we describe the fields and their data types. Well, for example, UUID, what's our data type? In this case, a string. Next, email, the data type is also a string. And so on. Name, age. Notice that age is an integer. And actually, is student is boolean. So what's going to happen? By using Pydantic, we can efficiently process this server response, input it directly, and automatically validate it against this model. This ensures that it'll carefully compare the presence of fields and their specific data types. Plus, we'll get exceptionally easy and streamlined access to all the elements. I'll show you now. To perform this validation, we need to create an object of the Pydantic model, which is this one, the user model. And during object creation, that is, during initialization, automatic validation will occur. Let's see how it works. We'll call it, for example, user equals, and just like in standard OOP, we create user model, and to validate this specific server response, we need to pass it as an init argument into this user model, our response. But not just like that, but using double asterisks. These double asterisks are the dictionary unpacking operator into keyword arguments. What does that mean? It means when we pass the response with double asterisks, our dictionary will be unpacked, like this. We have the key UUID equals and its value. Just like that. Then the next key, value, and so on. That's the unpacker specifically for dictionaries. Hope that's clear. So, our task is to unpack our dictionary, and it'll be inserted right here. What do we get as a result? We get a highly efficient and ready-to-use Pydantic object that automatically validates all input fields based on their specific names and types, ensuring data integrity throughout the entire process and the specific data types and structures of their values. For instance, whenever I execute this particular block of code, it will then automatically validate and verify our response against this model right here. I'll run it and there are no errors, everything's fine. But if I say pass 123 for UUID or email in the server response, while it's a string here, and try to validate that response, I'll see what? A great error message saying the email field must be a string, but we got 123. So it provides really clear error displays here, specifically for validation errors. We'll work more with this later, but as you can see, it looks very clean and easy to understand. Okay, what else do we get here? Actually, we get a lot, but I'll show a couple of basic things that are total game changers. Let me demonstrate the process of passing our server response in here once again. And please take a moment to recall how you used to retrieve specific data values, like the name, for example. What did we do before? We'd access it like this: response, then we'd pass, say, name, and check its value against what we expect using the key like that. And we'd write all this in an assert that name equals Alex, and maybe some error here. We run it and like everything's great, everything works. But you'll agree this is inconvenient. Made a typo, put name v instead of name. That's it, and everything's broken. Pydantic allows us to access object fields using a dot. What does that mean? Look, we created an object, validated it, and we call use dot and we get access. His student UID age name. And we no longer need to write keys manually, we won't make a mistake. And this way we can print, for example, the value of user. Dot, let's say email. We run it and get our email. And accordingly, we can also assert without worrying, knowing for sure we won't mess up. The last thing we'll look at in this lesson is what kind of object this is. Sure, we got access to the fields and all that, but let's print the object itself. We get this Pydantic object, which is basically just a list of fields, right? But what if we need to convert it back into a dictionary? That might happen. To compare it with something or whatever. We can utilize a very specific and useful method for this. It's called model dump JSON. It is as simple as that. We run it and retrieve our fully processed dictionary, which is already validated. So if you need to work specifically with a dictionary later, if that's essential, you can do that. That's all for the first lesson. I hope I've covered the basics, the foundation. Next, in the following lessons, we'll have a lot of interesting things. Those are validators, custom validators, extra models, errors, nested models. Like, for example, if we have a deep dictionary, right? And so on. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe, write comments, because unfortunately, my motivation to film for YouTube has pretty much vanished, and I hope it'll return with your support. Bye, everyone!